Kia ora koutou. Welcome to the first edition of the Hot Air Sports Podcast for 2023. It's a big, brand new show. Actually, no, it's not
Woohoo!
just the same as what we've done before. Welcome to my good buddy, Aaron Mahona. Mate,
How?
how are you?
Oh, I'm good, brother. How are you, mate? It's been a
I'm
while.
very
Oh,
well.
Happy New Year! Happy New Year! Happy
Well, it's
Matariki!
it's
Happy
new.
Easter! Happy Anzac Day! Happy
It's
all
New
the
Year somewhere in the universe.
happy all the holidays we've missed since
Yes.
we've last been online together. But it's great to be back. The Hot Air Sports Podcast back, bigger than ever. We got 2023. What a sporting year it's been already, Macca.
Unbelievable the sport that's happened already this year. It's
Yeah.
what is it? It's not even the end of April yet, and just lots has been happening.
Yeah, man. Let's crack into it. What do we got on the podcast today?
Well, we've got a bit of football, which we'll kick off the pod with. Then we move on to a bit of rugby league, then a bit of union, and we'll finish off with a bit of baseball. And at the end, we'll see what we've got time left for, and we might even have a wee chat about the Black Caps. We'll see what's going on. But let's start with football. It's almost the end of the 22-23 season. Arsenal, they were favourites to win the premiership up until about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm bloody glad we didn't do our predictions at the beginning of this season, mate, because mine would have been way off. I don't even think I had Arsenal for the top four, and they've just killed it this season. They've done so well, and then they've just spluttered these last three games, haven't they? They they drew 2-2 with us after being up in the last 20 minutes. They drew 2-2 with West Ham as well, and then they stuffed it against Southampton as well, drew 3-3 with them after being 3-1 down. They came back in the last few minutes, but those are 6 points dropped, and that's a lot of points when you're competing with the behemoth that is City, isn't it, mate? I mean,
absolutely. All that Saudi oil money behind them. They spanked Arsenal yesterday, didn't they?
Oh, mate.
Could have been 6 or 7.
Yeah. I mean, Haaland is just on fire. Pep Guardiola had it right. He did the pinging long balls to him, brought them down. De Bruyne running off him like an Olympic sprinter and shooting like a striker. I mean, he was just absolutely phenomenal yesterday. His passing,
De Bruyne was on another planet yesterday.
He often is, isn't he? But for the big games, he really comes out to play. He's just a great player. I mean, you got to give it to City, mate. They are a behemoth when they're chasing it. But one thing we have to say, Arsenal, it is their first time competing with City, isn't it? First time really going head-to-head with City. Liverpool got 97 points one year, didn't win the league, came back the next year, got better. Arsenal's got a very good chance of doing it this year, or next season, I must say, because they're a very young team. They just need a couple of additions, probably a little bit of experience here and there, and they could be anything next year. I mean, he is hoping that next year we get like maybe 4 or 5 teams competing for the Premier League.
That would be fantastic. I mean, Newcastle have shown this year that with that Saudi money behind them, they'll be recruiting again in the off season. Man U, well, who knows what'll happen there. Hopefully they'll fall by the wayside, but
hopefully,
unfortunately, it's not.
Ronaldo will come back for a third time.
Bring back David Moyes.
Yes.
And of course, Spurs. Nobody knows what's happening with Spurs. That game against Newcastle the other day, where they were 5-0 behind after 21 minutes.
20 minutes, 5-0 behind. People have said that's the worst 20 minutes of Premier League football ever by one side.
I mean, Newcastle scored more goals in those 21 minutes than they had at training the previous night.
It's just crazy
against no opposition.
No.
Anyway, back to the
poor old Spurs
table. You're right with Arsenal. I think couple of shrewd buys in the transfer market over the summer.
Yeah,
maybe they just need one of the a big. I guess the best way to explain it is a big ball busting centre back.
Yeah, they got Saliba, but he's been injured.
John Stones. Somebody like that can just break everything up.
Yeah, Nat Phillips. We'll sell him. We'll give them 40 million. They can have Nat Phillips for 40 million. He'll sort them out.
Yeah.
I agree, though. Saliba's been a big loss for them. And that's the thing. Their squad isn't nowhere near as deep as... They've got a great first 11. Their reserves, you just look at what City can bring off the bench. And actually what Liverpool brought off the bench yesterday as well. I mean, they just don't quite have the depth, do they? With a few injuries. I mean, Jesus got injured. earlier in the year, and they were lucky that who stepped up for him. But anyway, they got goals from other areas, didn't they?
Well, Martinelli's been on fire. He's their top scorer.
He has been on fire, and Saka as well.
Mm.
So yeah, but they have got a very they haven't really been bothered massively by injuries, but when injuries hit, they do take effect a lot more than another squad. So yeah, they'll be back next year. Arsenal are definitely comers. Newcastle, man, they've been a big surprise packet. You said that you thought that they were going to fall by the wayside, but they've invested very shrewdly, haven't they? The players they bought the right players in the right positions, and they haven't gone out and splashed the cash on 100 million here, 100 million there, like Chelsea have done. So they've just bought the right players. And Eddie Howe, I mean, you have to give props to that guy too, mate. I mean, he's just had them playing very, very good football. And
he's got to be the next England manager, doesn't he?
Well, Graham Potter. I mean, he's out of a job. So, I mean, Graham Potter must be the next England manager, I'd say. Who knows? But anyway, Newcastle, you have to give them props as well. I think it's good that Newcastle are up near the top. I mean, you got City, you got Arsenal, you got Newcastle. Those three are definitely in the Champions League. Then it's a dog fight, isn't it? You got basically Tottenham, you've got Manchester United, and then Villa, and then us, and maybe Brighton also chasing them. So there's 5-1 really there, isn't there? But then there's the Europa League, mate. If we get it now, a lot of people have said, I hope we lose all the last of our games because it'd be better if we're not in Europe at all. I definitely don't want to be in the Conference League. No, I don't want to be in the Conference League either. But the Europa League would be quite, it's a competition that we've got history in. Klopp made the final in his first year. And it's one of those trophies that Klopp hasn't won. He's won everything else. So I think that would be a good competition for us to be in next year.
Well, that was the story for Man United this year, wasn't it? They were going to win that trophy.
They were going to win the treble, weren't they?
And then along came Sevilla. Let's just have a quick look at the run-ins for all of those sides. United, they've got a relatively tough run-in. They've got Villa next. They've still got to play Brighton. West Ham won't be easy, as we saw against Liverpool yesterday. They should beat Wolves, should beat Bournemouth. They'll have an easy win over Chelsea, and then Fulham, and then they'll lose the FA Cup final to Manchester City.
Yeah, they will. That isn't the easiest run-in. You're right.
No, certainly not. Spurs, well, they've got Liverpool on Monday.
Yep.
Then they've got Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Brentford, and Leeds. So there's 3 tough ones in there.
Absolutely.
Villa have got an even tougher run-in. They're away at United on Monday.
They are on fire at the moment, though, mate.
They are on fire.
They are.
They're away at Wolves. Then they are at home to Spurs, away to Liverpool, home to Brighton in the last game.
Man, see.
And Brighton have got an even tougher run-in. They've got Manchester United at home. Oh, they've got Wolves at home, Manchester United at home, Everton, that's an easy 3 points. The Arsenal away, Newcastle away, Southampton at home, Manchester City at home, and then Villa Brighton last game of the season.
And Brighton are wobbling a little bit now, aren't they? After they lost that semi-final. I mean, they were unlucky in that game, I thought. It was like the first time I've ever seen their players in the final third looking hesitant. I mean, Matoma was just he's been so clinical all season, and so is what's the other kid's name that missed the penalty in the shootout?
Solly March.
Solly March. I mean, he's been great all season, and both of those guys just looked hesitant, didn't they? I don't know. I thought they missed the big Evan Ferguson, the big young Irish boy up front, quite a bit. He's looked very impressive for a teenager up front, doesn't he?
And Alexis McAllister's been outstanding.
Oh, mate, him and Caicedo. I mean, when we get to the Liverpool recruitment, either one of those, I'd take either one of those in a heartbeat. Thank you very much.
Yep. Now let's drop right down to the other end of the spectrum. Southampton look like they're doomed.
I think they're gone, mate.
I think they're gone. They've got to make up 6 points in 5 games. That's a real tough ask.
Yep.
The other side, I think, look doomed, especially after this morning's result, is our near neighbours Everton. They have
Merseyside derby next year, man.
They've gone from poor to very poor.
They have. Sean Dyche has got them playing that cracking football.
Yeah,
Sean Dyche.
So you've got 6 teams that could fill those 2 spots. One I've given to Everton, but you've also got West Ham, Bournemouth, Leeds, Forest, and Leicester.
Yeah, up until today, how did Forest get? I think Forest did okay yesterday, didn't they?
Forest had a win yesterday, so that
Yeah.
took them out of the bottom 3.
Yeah.
What's their run-in like?
Yeah, because I think Forest could be the one to go as well.
They've got Brentford away. That'll be tough. They've got Southampton at home. Then they've got an easy 3 points at Stamford Bridge. Then they're at home to Arsenal and away to Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
not a bad run-in.
Yeah.
But,
what about Leeds? What about Leeds? Because Leeds are looking. I mean, they are just looking worse and worse and worse. And Harvey Guest, how they chose him as their coach, I've got no idea.
They're away at Bournemouth this weekend, so that'll be a big game.
That could go either way.
Then they've got 2 games that they're going to struggle to get anything out of: away at Man City and home to Newcastle.
No, they're going there. Yeah.
Then they've got away at West Ham and last game of the season home to Spurs. So it's pretty tough running.
So I'd say the last team will either be Forest or Leeds, either one of them. Yeah. I think Bournemouth have got enough. They've done enough in the last couple of weeks to show me that they've got a little bit of guts. And Gary O'Neill, I mean, he's got them playing good football too. And
Leicester have got 3 winnable games in their last 5.
Yeah. And Dean Smith seems to have done a little bit with that team, maybe give them a little bit of belief. I don't think Brendan Rodgers was basically, he had lost the choir there. I mean, they basically weren't listening to anything he was saying. So I think they did the right thing there.
He was still very pro to them. Very pro.
Pro to the character. Yeah. Dean Smith, he's got them playing well. Who's the other side you said?
Well, Bournemouth and West Ham, I think they're probably okay.
West Ham will be okay. Is there another side down there though?
Oh, Chelsea.
There it is. Mid-table Chelsea. They've been mid-table all year after spending close to $1 billion in the transfer market. Well, they did spend over $1 billion New Zealand dollars.
Yeah, they sure did.
And they've got a hodgepodge of players. They don't know who their coach is going to be next year. Pochettino maybe, but will he come to coach in the championship? Honestly, Chelsea.
Let's be serious here. They're not likely to go down. But
no, they're not.
Whilst it's still a mathematical possibility, we're saying it still could happen.
It could. They can't score goals. They just can't score goals. I mean, you can't score goals. You can't win football matches. Very
difficult to win a football match if you can't score goals.
And it's amazing. You know, you spend that much money, you don't buy a striker. Yeah. I mean, and then the one good striker, that you lend out. I mean, he's on loan. I mean, it's just I don't know. It could only happen at Chelsea, couldn't it?
Exactly. Anyway, that's pretty much the Premiership wrapped up. Burnley and Sheffield United are both confirmed to return to the Premier League with 2 games to go. Burnley, wow, what a season they've had. They've only lost 3 games. They've drawn probably more than they would have liked to have, but still they're sitting top of the table on 95 points. Sheffield United are confirmed to go up on 85 points. Luton and Middlesbrough look set to go into the playoffs, but there's a hell of a battle for the other 2 places, with just 3 points separating the next 6 teams. Luton and Middlesbrough, Coventry and Sunderland are currently in the playoff spots on 66 and 65. Below them are Millwall and Blackburn Rovers, and are the same points as Sunderland. Then you got West Brom and Preston, both on 63. So those 6 teams are separated by 3 points with 2 games to go. Any one of them could do it. I'd love to see Coventry and Sunderland make the playoffs.
Yeah, the
good old ex-Premier League sides.
Absolutely.
Once you Blackburn Rovers and West Brom, you could put in that argument as well. But
I think Burnley actually got promoted when they were playing at Blackburn too, didn't they? So the Blackburn fans weren't too bloody happy with that. Vincent Kompany, he's done very well, hasn't he? As the coach,
he's done a great job.
Maybe he'll be the next coach of Chelsea when he knows the championship.
He does.
No, we're just going to keep putting the boot into Chelsea, aren't we, mate?
Quite right.
Sorry, if you're a Chelsea fan and you're watching this podcast, I'm sure you can take it. You've given it to us long enough. So
well, you've been a Chelsea fan this long, you can
that's
take
right.
more of it.
Deal with it.
Now the absolutely biggest story in football has to come from North Wales, doesn't it? Wrexham.
Welcome to
back
Wrexham.
in the Football League after a 15-year break. They won the National League with a game to go and
100 and something points.
110 points.
110 points.
And they're away to Torquay this weekend. Do you think that'll might be a bit of a boozy trip?
I'd say so. I love that. Did you watch the game against Notts County?
No, I've seen
the highlights were fantastic. I mean, just a fantastic game. It was 4-3, I think, in the final,
3-2,
and
yeah.
3-2. Sorry, but there were disallowed goals. There was all sorts of stuff off the ball. It was and in the last minute, the save penalty by Scott Carson and Steve Foster, sorry, and
Ian Foster.
That's right, and then getting the hug from Ryan Reynolds at the end of the game, go, oh my God, that's as excited as I've ever been. Oh! and what I love is just the Rob McElhenney and him, just the sheer joy, that you can't fake that stuff. I know they're actors, but you can't. I mean, they were tears of joy that Rob McElhenney cried, mate, and they're obviously not doing it for themselves, doing it for the right reasons, and regardless of whether it's Hollywood and all that sort of stuff, regardless of what you think about that, you just got to say it's just a bloody great story, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait for the second series of
neither can
Welcome to Wrexham to come out. It's just going to be brilliant.
It's going to be fantastic to see how I think some of the best characters in that were like the people of Wrexham, the guy that owned the pub, the guy that had to break up with his wife and still loved the team and takes his kids to the just real people, just such a neat story.
Have you liked their attempts this week to try and sign Gareth Bale?
Awesome! Come and play golf with me and we'll talk about it. Yeah. That was brilliant. Just
brilliant banter. And what did Ryan Reynolds said? Something along the lines of, I'll shave a golf course into Rob McElhenney's back just to try and attract you. But then countered that with, I've just looked and there's not enough hair on Rob McElhenney's back to do that. Just having it's fantastic having owners like that in football, as against the clown that is running Chelsea at the moment.
Yeah. Or the Glazers, or just so many bad owners in football. They are the odd ones out. I mean, they really
absolutely
are. Doing the right thing for the community and doing the right thing for football. It's just good to see, mate. It's so good to see.
The economy in Wrexham must be just absolutely booming at the moment.
People they're getting tourists from all over the world just going to that pub going, I just saw it on TV. I want to come over here, be part of it. And I was just
you can't buy a Wrexham shirt for anything at the moment. I've looked a number of times online and it's just sold out.
No, you can't go. You can't even get a cap. I mean, I think Paul Rudd attended the last game too.
Didn't he?
They'll bring a different Hollywood star every time. It's fantastic, mate. It's just great for football. It's great.
Yep. Right. So with the end of the season comes the transfer market. Let's just focus on Liverpool for now, because that's our team.
Yeah.
Who do you want? Who have we been linked with? What do you think the side's going to look like next season?
Different. It's going to look different, especially in the midfield. Obviously, the biggest talking point for us is the Jude Bellingham thing. In the last week or so, Liverpool come out and said, look, we're not going to be in the market for Jude Bellingham. He's just too expensive. And the crowd, all our supporters just going absolutely tits up crazy about it, saying, well, he was our one player. We said we were going to get him. Why didn't we get him first before he went to the rest of the... Look, it's all by the by now. You just got to, we know who I'm going to be supporting the same team next year, regardless of whether Jude Bellingham's in the side anyway. So if we can't get Jude Bellingham, okay, so the midfield rebuild, we have to look at other options. At the moment, Mason Mount's looking very, very likely, because he's in the last year of his contract at Chelsea. We'll probably bid something like 30 or 40 million, get him. He's a very good player. He's never injured.
He's every coach
Yep. He's English. Every coach which means, player quotas, every coach that's worked under him has loved him. I mean, or worked for him have loved him. His work rate's fantastic. He would be a fantastic Klopp player. I think he'd be a great player for Liverpool. So he'd be one option in midfield. Ryan Gravenberch has been talked about. He's another young guy, only 21 years old. Did it all for Ajax, moved to Bayern. He was only there for 1 year. Slight spanner in the works, maybe, that Thomas Tuchel is now the manager at Bayern and made changes impression of him and all that sort of thing. I don't know, but maybe him. Caicedo from Brighton, I would absolutely love him. I think he could change our side. He's like a young Kante. He just breaks. Yeah. He's so calm on the ball. He breaks up play. He's just a great player. McAllister as well. I would love him as well. He's a different sort of player to Caicedo. Probably plays a little bit further forward, more creative, but just he's a baller too, man. I'd love him, but it sounds to me like he might be going to City to replace Gundogan. So I don't know.
The other one that's been mentioned in recent days is a cut price move for Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's 27, 28. He's injured all the time. I don't know whether I'd take. I haven't seen him all year. So I mean, where's he been? I mean, I don't know. And would City sell him to us for a good price? Yeah. What go and look for a gem. I think we need to look for. Ryan Gravenberch would be good because he's athletic, he's young, he's going to improve. Mason Mount, because of the situation with the contract. So we got to do things a little bit smarter, like we did. And also look at the teams that are getting relegated. So Southampton, okay. So if Southampton get relegated, I love the young boy in midfield. I think he's only just turned 20. Lavia in midfield, big guy, good on the ball, very robust, and just seems to run all day. I really like him. He could develop under Klopp. And you look at people have talked about James Ward-Prowse. I just don't think he'd be our sort of player. He's great dead ball skills, but what else?
Dead ball, but
what else though? Conor Gallagher, overrated as far as I'm concerned. I just don't see. I mean, last year he did okay.
Well for Crystal Palace when he was there.
He did, but how's he done? No, mind you, no one's done anything for Chelsea this year. So I mean, I don't know. I don't really. I just haven't seen Conor Gallagher enough. And he looks a little bit like Jamie Tart from
He does.
So I don't know whether I'd take him. So those are the midfield options. I think we also need...
I guess just to add one more to the pot is the young lad who plays for Wolves, Matheus Nunes.
Oh, yes.
He's a quality player, and one that I know Klopp has had his eye on for a long time, and wanted to go for him last summer, but couldn't because of the budgetary restraints, and he ended up going to Wolves. But it's another side we've poached players from before as well.
That's true.
And what do you think of the way that Trent Alexander's being played at the moment?
I'm loving it, mate. I think it's what we've all been crying out for, play him in the midfield. And it's a sort of that hybrid role where he drops back to fullback when we're out of position and goes into the midfield when we're in possession. It's fantastic. I think it works better against the teams where we have obviously more position. So obviously the teams on the lower half of the table. I don't know whether I'd always try it. I mean, he got caught out against Arsenal once for a goal, and I just think it's maybe asking a bit much. So maybe we need to go on the transfer market and buy a right back. There's a few options out there or we also probably need another centre back. I think up front we're pretty good. No problems up front. But Firmino's leaving, so maybe if we get a chance to sign someone on a free or someone else, but up front we're probably pretty good. Midfield and at the back, maybe one more central defender and maybe a left or a right back, maybe either or. Maybe we're probably going to need another goalkeeper too, man. Number 2 goalkeeper because Quavin Kelleher looks like he wants to be a number 1 somewhere, doesn't he? So
I think the way we've seen Cody Gakpo play in the last 3 or 4 games, he is really starting to take on that Firmino mantle, isn't he?
Yeah,
the dropping deep, creating space for Salah and Jota up front.
Yeah.
And Luis Diaz, when he comes off the bench, just looks unbelievable, and is just going to frighten defenses next year.
Just stay on the field. I mean, just stay fit, and he's just so scary. But you're right about Gakpo, and he's had Firmino to learn off over these last 6 months, or the last little while that he's been at the club. The best. Firmino's been the best false 9 for the last decade, really, hasn't he? And I mean, to learn off him. And I think Gakpo comes across as that guy that comes across as a guy who's a really intelligent footballer too, eh? You know, a bit like he seems to take things on and learn them really fast. And I like the way he turns and runs with the ball. He's a bit quicker than Firmino. Yeah, man, he could be fantastic. And the way he took that goal the other day, I mean, we haven't seen a goal like that scored outside the box for a little while, you know. And if he's got that in the kit bag as well, with with Diaz and maybe Núñez running off the side of him with guys with that quick, you know, it's going to be frightening next season. What about Núñez, man? What do you think of him this season? Obviously, everyone's saying, you know, he's hit and miss. He's all over the show. What do you think of him?
I think he's going to be an amazing player for Liverpool. It just may take a wee while. I mean, he's only 23. He's learned a hell of a lot this year. And he's only been used sparingly off the bench in recent weeks after that wee niggle of an injury he did get. He looks, when the ball's played in front of him, he looks absolutely fantastic. I don't think he's one of those players that you can feed it into him at his feet with his back to goal. That's when he really struggles. And that's what Cody Gakpo is doing absolutely brilliantly. And of course, Mo Salah can just do anything on a football field. In next year up front, I think the three
I was just going to say this
that we're watching at the moment with Salah, Gakpo, and Jota, 2/3 of that I think will be our top front three. I think you'll find that Luis Diaz will come in on the left-hand side and Jota will play more of a support role, coming off the bench and you know, getting the odd game here and there. But I think their front three is going to be dangerous next year.
Me too, man. Núñez, if you had Núñez, Salah, and Diaz, I mean, I'd love to see those three up front. I mean, they haven't played up front together yet. I mean, it just hasn't happened. One of them's always been injured or something's happened. I mean, those three could be absolutely frightening. And like you say, Núñez, you're exactly right. He just wants to spin and go. He doesn't want to, you know, feet into feet. He's not that sort of player. But he also doesn't, you know, he's like you say, he's young. First season at Liverpool, always difficult for those, usually difficult for those coming from a league overseas. And also the fact that, you know, he's doesn't speak English still, apparently. He's he's been quite slow in that regard. So I reckon next season could be the season that he bangs him in, mate. We're looking great up front. So it's really reconstruct that midfield. A little bit of support at the back,
just and maybe up at the back,
a second goalkeeper, and we'll be right. And we'll be right to go. And let's just hope they have a good preseason. We, you know, have all our players fit. Can you imagine if we went through a season without it? You know, with say the injuries that Arsenal have had this year, with hardly anyone injured. You know, we would kill it. We would kill it, but we just can't seem to do that. I mean, I know it's the style we play, but anyway, so that's probably the recruitment for Liverpool done. Let us know if you think Liverpool should recruit anyone else that we might not have mentioned. We'd love to hear from you.
I'm sure Chris Mitchell will have words to add to that and some other player names.
Absolutely.
Just a very, very quick touch on the A-League. Phoenix are doing all they can to try and avoid being in the playoffs at the moment. They've lost their last 4 in a row.
What the hell's going on with the Phoenix, mate? I mean, honestly, they were doing so well this season, and then all of a sudden they start announcing these guys are going. Oh, the coach is going, and then they fall flat on their face. You know, it's like, well, why are they falling flat on their face? Because everyone's fucking off. I mean, why do they make these announcements before the season's finished?
Yeah, well, they're copying the league, aren't they? I mean, how many players do we see that, you know, so-and-so signed for the Roosters, but not for this year, for next year?
Yeah, I know.
You know? And yes, we are playing bottom of the table, MacArthur, and I only need a point. But I tell you what, I'm as nervous as hell. They might as well just give Italiano the head coaching role for this game, and if he can just sit on the bench and offer advice.
Yeah, why not?
Let Lewis, Ugarkovic, and Ollie Sale leave them on the bench.
Yep. What's the point of having them in the side?
They all look like. I mean, I know consciously they're trying to put in as much effort as they can, but subconsciously there's always that thought in the back of their mind. Well, I'm not going to be here next year, so.
Yep.
But anyway, as you say, great guns until about 6 weeks ago. the
it's just so
performance against Western Sydney Wanderers the other day, I started watching it thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to watch this game.
Yeah.
8 minutes in, we'd had something like, it seemed like 450 passes without going anywhere. Western Sydney
One
get the
counter-attack.
ball. 5 passes later, they're 1-0 up. And I went, no, not watching this.
Lucky you're not a Spurs fan.
Yeah.
You'd be turning off after 5 minutes every week. I completely agree with you, though, mate. It's like we seem to have a style. We seem to have the right players in the right positions. We seem to be going in the right direction. Everyone was playing as a team. And then all of a sudden, it's like we don't. It's so hard to put your finger. Well, it's not really. I mean, we really do know, behind the scenes. But why can't this club get it right behind the scenes, man? I mean, do the owners just need to say pack off and leave and just say put it up for sale and say, look, maybe or get some investment from somewhere else? Do they need to? Is that the problem? Is it just money?
Oh, it has to be. Absolutely has to be. It's going to be interesting to see in 12 months' time how they're not in next season, but the season after when the Auckland entry comes into the league.
Yeah.
To see how they go. I mean,
well, what sort of money's behind that bid?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
We don't know, do we? I mean,
I don't know if you watch the Kiwi Football Fix.
I do watch that occasionally. Not a bad show. Good on you, Gordon.
It was an interesting one on this week's episode. They were trying to line up superstar investors, a la Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney.
Oh, beautiful!
Just using
Peter
New
Jackson
Zealand people. Yeah, getting. Perhaps they should have a
good move.
Music investors with Lord and Benny. Finn family.
Not a bad idea.
Or New Zealand movie stars, Taika Waititi, Sam Hunt,
Absolutely. Peter Jackson's the perfect one.
Peter Jackson is
he's in Wellington. I mean,
come
on, he's probably got more money than all of them put together.
Quite right. And of course, there is the football money earners, Chris Wood, Winston Reid, Ryan Nelson, Tim Brown, who's now a multi-trillionaire after inventing the Allbirds shoes.
And even other sporting luminaries that have made money out of Mark Ellis, look at the wealthy, there must be money out there that people are willing to invest in it. I know a lot of the time, you look at we're going to get to the Warriors shortly, Mark Robinson. He's made a conscious decision this year to sort of butt his nose out of which has been fantastic. We've got one. You do need an owner with money, with deep pockets, but also that realizes that the money that they seem to be flushing down the toilet, it's all an investment. If everyone's pulling in the right direction.
Well, it's also much like my favorite sport, which I'm going to talk about soon, and that's the Auckland Tuatara.
I know. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Okay, because especially running a sporting franchise in a market so small as New Zealand. You look at, my team, once again, we'll just go back to the Warriors very, very quickly. They're playing in a competition now that's getting lots of exposure. We've got a team playing a game in New Zealand every second week. We know they're going to get the best players on the field. We know the product they're going to get is going to be a good product. People will go along. They start winning as well. What you do, all of a sudden, you're actually raking in the money as an owner because they're getting 20, 30,000 there every second week, mate. And you're selling, X amount of thousand jerseys every week. But you're not always going to have those times. So you need an owner who's there for the good times, and says, okay, this is a byproduct of all the work I put in during the hard times. It goes back to Rob McElhenney, all that stuff,
I was just going to say, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney will be wanting a return on that investment.
They will.
In years to come.
They will.
Not so much now.
No.
But in years to come, they will be wanting to put some cash back into their pockets, and they're going to, the way they're going.
Absolutely. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but you have to be there. It's like investing, it's like whenever you go to a bank or something, you say, okay, I've got $1,000, I want to invest it. They say, well, what are you wanting to do? Short-term loan, that's high risk, you've actually lost money. What have you done? You wanted the high risk, if you wanted You want to go in for 10 years, we can give you the small amount every year. It's incremental. I mean, that's the way you've got to build a sports franchise. You can't be in it like, right, I'm here, we want to win now.
Yep.
I just think that there's too much of that in the sports ownership, and especially in New Zealand. So yeah, let's hope we do get someone that owns the Auckland sporting franchise that has a little bit more of a, or they sell the Wellington Phoenix to someone with a little bit more of that, you know.
Anyway, enough about that. I think we could sit here and talk for hours on ownership models and sports funding and that sort of thing.
Could we what?
But let's get on to the mighty One New Zealand Vodafone Warriors.
Oh, go on. We're still going to drop in the Vodafone there, aren't we, mate?
Yeah, well, I mean, they, as an outsider, I must admit, I still do not watch a lot of league. I don't know why. Perhaps it's the way I was brought up.
Probably.
With a union father. But to me, they seem to just have a different aura about them this year. I mean, they're sitting easily in the top part of the table. Despite losing by 8 points to Melbourne, it was a hell of a lot better performance than conceding 70 points 12 months ago.
Absolutely, mate.
What's different? Apart from, I mean, is it just the coach?
Okay.
Is it the fact that the owner's not butting his nose in every 5 minutes?
Okay, so there's three. I came up with three key different things. Okay, three key different things with the Wars this year. Well, there's one key different. That's not a key one, but there is a different one. Everyone's calling them the Wars all of a sudden. The Wars, up the Wars. I'm like, and also on a lot of the Warriors pages, people are getting very upset, especially the older. It's the Warriors. It's not the Warriors. I'm like, who gives a what people are calling the team? We're winning. I mean, why do we care what they call? It's not like, the Manchester United called the Red Devils. Oh, they're not the Red Devils. It's who cares? It doesn't matter whether we're calling them the Wars. I really don't care. They can call them the bloody, I don't know, Heathers or whatever they want to call them. Anyway, the Warriors, three key things besides the War name. Very smart recruitment this year. Very, very smart. Perhaps the best recruitment we've had in over a decade. Charles Nickel-Klokstad, Dylan Walker, Tamare Martin, Mitch Barnett, even though he hasn't been on the field much lately, Jackson Ford, Taupiki at fullback, Luke Metcalf. Those are just some of the ones off the top of my head. Luke Metcalf hasn't even been on the field. He's a goer, mate, a real young guy from the Sharks, great fullback. He's going to be a great player. So they went out and they purchased experience in the areas they needed it, and they bought some young talent that might flourish later. So that is just a complete difference from what we were doing in the past. Oh, yeah, we'll grab him. Oh, grab him. Oh, grab him. He might do. I just think that they did it really, really well. And also, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is a perfect example of that. This week, we've obviously recruited back the Warriors fullback. We've got him on significantly less money than he was on before. He's got experience in spades, and he's not going to have to do it all himself. And he's going to be in a winning team. So it's going to be completely different for him. So that's one key thing, the recruitment. Second thing is the team culture. Obviously, how do you build culture? That's built over years and years and years. But we got the right coach in place. They're back in New Zealand. Okay. So they're not in Australia. They don't, especially with, I mean, I know it might be a fallacy, slightly racist to say, but a lot of the Maori and Pacific Island players don't travel quite so well when they're homebody from New Zealand. They don't travel so well. So when they're in Australia for the whole year, that must be bloody tough on them, So now they're reconnecting with that supporter group in New Zealand. That builds confidence, and confidence is everything in top class sports. So that's another thing. And the third thing is that the players are buying into a style of play that they believe in, that they think can work. It means we win games. Once again, that builds that confidence. They take more ownership on the field. They feel like if I make a mistake, it's because I'm doing the right thing anyway. And Sean Johnson's the perfect example of that. I mean, this year, he's just a different player. He's playing like he did back in the day with the experience of the head that he's got on him, which in the past couple of seasons, he's just been a shadow of that player. And that just has to come. So that's the third reason. And all of that, the fourth really comes through from the coach, obviously. Andrew Webster, incredibly impressive guy. He's really to me, Andrew Webster is coming across as a combination of two different coaches that the Warriors have had. Our two most successful coaches. He's a bit of Daniel Anderson. He's a little bit of Daniel Anderson. He's a motivator. He's an innovator. He's a thinker. And he's also a bit of Ivan Cleary. He's kind of calm, and he's tactical as well. And he speaks a language that the players buy into and understand. So to me, those are the key things that are different with the Warriors this season. They and then also, just to go with that, the fact that we're only hearing from Webster now, we're not hearing from the CEO, we're not hearing from the owner. He's gone in there and basically taken ownership of everything. If there's a problem with the referee, he'll deal with that in the or anything with the hierarchy in the NRL, which we get every bloody week with the Warriors. Let's be honest, because we're basically cheated. He'll just deal with it in such a calm and matter-of-fact way. It's just dealt with. It's gone. It's flushed down the dunny. We're on to the next game. And it's just we're not bitter, we're not twisted, it's just dealt with. And I also like the way, just fleetingly, the fact that we didn't have a special Anzac jersey. Every other team had the special. We just played in our normal jersey. That is such a change from the Warriors. It's always been about what jersey. Let's change our freaking jersey every week. This year, it's like, who cares a shit what we're playing in? We're just going to go on the field. It's more about what we're doing on the field. So there you go. Those big changes.
Previous years, they've had 15 different jerseys a season.
Exactly. Almost. And this time we actually had a special day, a special round, and we just thought, nah, we'll just play in our away jersey.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's not worry about the game. Let's just worry about the field or what's happening on the field, not the way we're looking on the field. So yeah, those are all a bunch of things which probably individually don't mean a hell of a lot, but when you put them all together, man, the team is just for someone like myself who's been supporting a losing team for 10 years, and last year was so hard. It was just so hard to support them. It's just nice to support a team, and I've been saying this from when at the beginning of the kickoff, they're going to be fighting as hard when the final whistle is blowing. That's all I've ever wanted as a team, as a supporter, right? That's all you ever want, is your team to play as hard at the start as they do at the end, and they definitely did that the other night. No one left on the bench. I mean, Nelson Osofa Solomona changed that game. He was just an absolute beast. He's just enormous. He had 4 guys hanging off him. He's popping balls. He's just a ridiculous human munter. He's just out. He's a scary, scary man. And
I know he got injured during the Melbourne Storm game, but having Tohu Harris back regularly must be a huge advantage too for the side.
Massive class act, bro. The most professional rugby league player we've got by miles. And when he plays, we average conceding 14 points when he plays. And when he doesn't play, we concede 30 points. So that sort of tells it. Or we double the amount of points we concede when he doesn't play. That's because he makes 1,000 tackles a game. He's just he's ridiculous. But he is playing hurt. He always plays hurt. But just the biggest pro, mate. He's just a great player. So yeah, we missed him when he went off.
Now you touched on it before. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has decided to go back to the Warriors and rugby league. Success or failure in Union?
I think that's a tough one. We talked about this the other day, didn't we? We were on text when it happened. I don't think you can say it was a failure. He made the All Black squad. I don't think they did him any favors, like you said, by playing him in the centres. I think they should have started him on the wing and let him maybe move inside after a while. I don't think he knew whether he was Arthur or Martha with some of the defensive structures and all that sort of thing. I don't think. And really, if he really wanted to give it a crack, if he really wanted to give Union a crack, he probably should have quit league probably 4 or 5 years ago and given it like the 4 or 5 year period, not a couple of years. At this stage, I always thought he looked like a league guy playing in a rugby team, and that's often how people look. It's so hard. I can't even really think of the last successful league player that transitioned to rugby. It's kind of difficult to think of. More rugby players, I think, transition the other way a little bit better, but I can't think of too many.
Yeah, there's a couple of the guys the Aussie guys I'm thinking of more so that have gone, and played successfully for the Warriors. Marika Korombeti,
that's true,
is one. He's probably the only one I can really think of.
Newcastle have got a really good fullback at the moment. They played in the sevens for Australia in the rugby, and he's going great guns in the NRL. You can see how some of those guys were. There was a New Zealand guy playing that played for the sevens as well, isn't he? Over there.
Yes.
Who was it?
Can't think of his name.
Yeah, but sevens players are perfect for a rugby league because it's an aerobic sport. It's more aerobic.
But obviously, going back, the most successful ones have been Sonny Williams and Brad Thorne.
Yeah, both of those two. But those two also they're exceptional athletes. I mean, they're once in a
Absolutely.
generation type athletes, aren't they? I mean, and Brad Thorne did it for a different sort of reason as well. You know, he had that, but he also transitioned back to rugby league again, and then back to both of them did that.
Both
you know,
of them did that. Yeah.
So
I think you'd have to call it a success.
oh, okay, that's nice to hear.
Purely for the fact that he played 3 tests for the All Blacks.
There you go.
You know, only one of those was as a starter. But still, to be selected for the All Blacks, you know, on the back of playing rugby league and a few games here and there for Auckland and the Blues, because he has had his injury problems, obviously, which hasn't helped. And yeah, as you say, I just think that first year he should have just played fullback or wing.
Yeah.
And then he would have been perfect to move inwards to centre or second five. I just think putting him straight into second five is really, really difficult, especially for defensive patterns. And also it put a lot more emphasis on his defence rather than his attack. And I mean, you've seen those twinkling feet when he's running down the field for the Warriors, you know, running in and out of players. He just never had the chance to do that, because not only have you got your opposition second five coming at you, you've probably got a couple of flankers. And loose forwards heading towards you as well.
Absolutely. So you used more of a Joe Stanley type role, wasn't he? Like just bash it up rather than be able to use your stepping, you know? A little bit sad, really. But I mean, look, he gave it a crack. He gave it a go. He was a rugby player to start with. I mean, he would have been a fantastic rugby player if he had stuck with rugby.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I just think he is a league player. I mean, he's a fantastic fullback. I mean, the question is now, does Chance go to centre or does he go to centre? I think it's a great problem to have. Quite frankly, I don't have a problem with either of them playing centre. No, it's more good cattle for the team, and it could be one of the missing pieces. You know, it's just great. It's just a great problem to have. The Warriors have never had that sort of problem where you've got two world-class fullbacks. I mean, fantastic.
I guess we also can't talk about league and leave out the new boys, the new kids on the block, the Redcliffe Dolphins.
The Dolphins
had an absolutely brilliant start to life in the NRL.
Yeah, after Nathan Highmarsh said they wouldn't win a game for the first 10 rounds, he's done well. Oh, Nathan Highmarsh. Nathan Highmarsh. Well, he also said that Ben Murdoch-Masila was going well for the Warriors, who hasn't actually, he's actually playing for St. George at the moment. So I don't know how much he actually watches, but nah, man, the Dolphins have surprised.
Yeah.
Why should they surprise though? Look at their coach, you know. Look at the coach. He does it every single time. He just talks down their chances. They come out. They play the same style. He's done it from the start. He coached Brisbane to their first game. You know, he's still doing it in 2023. Wayne Bennett, what a bloody legend. But no, they're playing a simple style of football. They don't have a lot of stars. Good on them, man. Good on them. Where's this next team going to come from, though? They're talking about maybe Wellington. Let's see.
Yeah. Maybe we will see the Wellington Orcas playing in the NRL.
Quite good to have that aquatic derby, wouldn't it? The Dolphins versus the Orcas, and
the
then
Dolphins versus the Orca. Yeah.
Throwing the eels for a little bit of a little bit of bait.
Quite right. Well, continuing with the oval ball, moving on to rugby. Scott Razor Robertson will take over the All Blacks head coaching role immediately after the final whistle of the All Blacks' last game at the Rugby World Cup. For me, it's a great appointment. Should have happened 3 years ago.
Absolutely. They got there in the end.
And yeah, they did get there in the end. I'll say it now. I can't see them winning the Rugby World Cup.
This year?
No,
they won't win it this year. If they do, it'll be a turn up for the books.
I think certainly will be.
Yeah,
a huge turn up for the books. Now he's just announced his coaching panel. Some big names in there: Leon McDonald, Jason Holland.
Who's going to coach the Super Rugby teams?
Yeah, exactly. Three. Yeah, just the Chiefs and the Highlanders are the sides not looking for a new coach next year, with the Crusaders, Hurricanes, and the Blues all needing new bosses. But I think that's a great coaching team he's appointed. Leon McDonald's going to run the attack. Jason Ryan's already doing a great job with the forwards. I mean,
he did. He made a big difference when he came in last year.
The All Blacks have turned their game around since he came on board. You got Jason Holland is going to run the defense. And who's the other one I'm missing out? Leon McDonald's going to be.
No, you said Leon McDonald. Yeah.
No,
it's a great coaching.
Scott Hansen is. He's going to be the defense coach.
Another Hansen in the box. Can't be too wrong. I mean, no, that's a great coaching squad. It is depleting the coaching stocks in the Super Rugby, mate. Who will take those positions? Will they come from NPC Rugby?
Possibly.
Or overseas?
Yeah, I think we might see a bit of both. I'm guessing the current Canterbury coach, who I can't quite think of off the top of my head, may just be promoted to Crusaders head coach, because they'll need to replace Scott Hansen in that coaching group as well. The other two might be a bit more difficult. The Hurricanes and the Blues. Going to be very interesting to see who ends up with those jobs. Well,
maybe is Jamie Joseph ever going to come? Or is he nailed on for Japan, or is he going to?
Well, he's still locked into Japan, as far as I know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. We'll watch the space, I guess. The other thing that Razor said actually this morning in the paper this morning is that he's open for overseas picks.
Yeah,
for players, not coaches, players coming from overseas to play for the All Blacks. Now that is a big old can of worms that's been opened many times and closed many times for the last 20, 30 years since professional rugby's been going in New Zealand. The New Zealand Rugby Union's been very, very straight up about no, players go overseas. There's no way. Obviously, there's been sabbaticals and stuff to sort of circumnavigate that, but they've been very strict with this ruling. Now, Razor, I don't believe, would have said this if he hadn't have been given the blessing from the New Zealand Rugby Union when he went in, did the interview process, which he said went for 3 days and was the longest interview process of his life. Surely that got covered off in the interview process. Surely he said, I want to bring players from overseas.
I don't know.
Or do you think he's already throwing spanners at the works?
I'm sort of in favour of it, but I'm not. I would like to see more New Zealanders playing in Super Rugby, whether it be for New Zealand franchises or Australian franchises or Fijian Drua, or
I would like to see that too, Macca, but how the hell is that going to happen? That's just not going to happen. People aren't going to the games. I mean, there's just not enough money. There's not enough. We have to wake up, smell the coffee, smell the roses, and just say, look, it's going to be carte blanche. New Zealand, we've got to realize that the best rugby competitions aren't going to be in New Zealand. That's just going to happen.
Yeah,
we have to appreciate that now. This is just me, because I've fallen out of love of rugby in the last sort of 12 months because of the Super Rugby. I tuned in for a couple of Blues games. I didn't know why. Where is this guy? Why isn't he? Oh, he's been rested. I was like,
yeah, that's great.
You know, you just don't know who's playing one week to the next. And even if it's a game against one of your top rivals, the New Zealand Rugby Union can say, no, you're going to rest that player. I mean, how are you doing any favors for the people trying to follow the game as fans? I would love that to be the case, where we bring back the best players, but that's going to require a whole bunch of money and a reinvestment into the competition that I just do not believe is. We've been talking about running a sports franchise in New Zealand, how hard it is. I just don't think the money's there. I think we're going to have to eventually just say, look, our players are just going to be mercenaries. They're going to go all over the world, and we're going to bring them all back and have the best fucking All Blacks team ever. We are. The All Blacks are going to... Can you imagine the pool of talent that we can pull in? We will be like the Brazil, you know?
Yeah, I'm just thinking now of all the players that have gone overseas, how many of them would actually make the All Blacks? Well, I actually don't think there would be many.
Yeah, but maybe that's case in point too, because of the rules, you know?
Yeah.
If you opened it up now, the best players would go overseas. They'd leave. I know that wouldn't be great for rugby in New Zealand. Look, I don't know. It's such a tough one, isn't it? I mean, it's so tough. If we continue with the way it is and say no players, it's almost like communism. We're not facing the reality of what's right in front of us, right? We're not facing the reality of it. We're just saying, no, we're going to hold these people here and we're going to keep it. It's like Carless days, or we're putting a wage freeze on. We're just freezing these players. When really, in reality, there's a different economy out there, you know? Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it, mate. But if we could pull every player from overseas, I'm sure Scott Robinson will bring in some absolute gems from overseas that we aren't even thinking of, you know?
Oh, quite probably. Yeah, I'm torn, I guess.
I know you are.
With you know me, I like my traditions.
Yeah, I know.
I just don't know whether the rugby union has indicated to him or not. I'm picking not. I think
then that's a hell of a thing.
It's just Razor being Razor.
It's a hell of a thing to come out and say. I mean, bravo to him if he has it. Bravo to me. I mean, as someone, you know, I just think, yes, that's the sort of coach you want who's just going to speak his mind. But man, the New Zealand Rugby Union can't, they'll be sitting there today going, what? He said what if that's not the case? So yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I going back to what I was saying earlier, I think New Zealand players should be allowed to play for any Super Rugby province.
Yeah.
I mean, the competition is in this part of the world. You can still keep a close eye on them. But I'm guessing the rugby union wouldn't like it because they're not going to be able to tell the New South Wales Waratahs, you're not allowed to play Rico Ioane.
Exactly. Why can't our players go and play for an Australian franchise?
And that's something I completely disagree with, resting players. Yep. I mean, look at the Crusaders, who have had 16 injuries a couple of weeks ago. They're starting to get some of those players back now.
Yep.
But they actually had to apply to the rugby union to stop Scott Barrett being rested. You know, that's absolutely ridiculous.
See, because it's run from the top down. Why can't, if this is a real franchise sports, professional sports franchise, if they really want this to run as that, then they have to run independently. They have to. Those sports franchises have to be allowed to play their best players whenever they want to play them. And if they get injured,
the NRL saying to Melbourne Storm, you can't play Cam Munster because he needs to have a rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the Kangaroos are going to be touring at the end of the year.
Everyone would just say fuck off. It's like he's our player, you know. It's like
I know.
We don't give a shit. I mean,
I agree with you 100% on that one. The resting policy is absolute bollocks.
You're just kicking your fans in the balls. You really are.
Exactly.
You know, you go along, you buy your flag, you buy your jersey, you want to go along every week. You want to, where's Beauden Barrett? He's not allowed to play this week because he's got to have a standard of 4 weeks off, and we chose this as one of the. I mean, surely. But does this come back to too much rugby? Is this why they're doing it?
Absolutely.
So basically, they are saying, because they're constantly putting more rugby every year. So they're the ones that have actually created the problem, you know, by creating more games for the All Blacks to play. And then they're saying, okay, so the way to mitigate this is to completely stuff up the fans in the professional club franchise system. So how can people take it seriously as a proper club franchise system if the people at the top aren't, you know?
And it's another reason why more and more fans are switching to league, because they know the season starts at the end of March.
Yep.
They know the grand final is going to be the last weekend in September.
Yep. And they know they get 2 points for a win and none for a fucking bonus. How many tries do we need to get? We need to get within 7 points and within 5 minutes, and we can get an extra point there and a point there. And and also the table. I look at the table, the NRL table. Oh, the Warriors are fourth. Oh, the Warriors are third. Oh, the Warriors are sixth. I know where they sit. I know what they need to do. Oh, they're in the conference, the the South. Hang on, they can play this, and then at the end of the season, if there's all the teams at the top are New Zealand teams, then one of them has to drop out anyway. I was like, what?
Yeah, I know, but I think light may be at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully,
hope so.
The sooner, and this has been Steve Hanson's gripe for many, many years.
Yep,
is creating a proper calendar, world rugby calendar. So Northern Hemisphere, they play their competition from, beginning of October to the end of March.
Yep.
Then it starts in New Zealand, and then they have an international window at the end of March for 3 weeks, and then the New Zealand and Australian season and South African season starts, and that goes through to the end of October, just as the Northern Hemisphere sides are starting, and they have another international window then. And it's easy. I mean,
you would think it would be in the best interests of the IRB to do that, wouldn't you?
Look at all the sports with traditional sports bases. English football season always starts in August and ends in May.
Yep.
American football season starts in September or end of August and goes through to the beginning of February. Major League Baseball starts in beginning of March, goes through to the end of October.
Yep.
NBA, NHL, exactly the same.
Rugby starts in March this year. We'll start in January next year. The year after, we'll start in February. We'll end. You just don't know.
Oh, there's a World Cup that year, so we'll bring it forward, and rugby can start on January the 15th.
I know.
What a great time to start rugby in New Zealand and Australia.
When there's still cricket going on, you know,
And the grounds are like this.
Exactly. You cannot, it's not rocket science, mate. It's crazy. Yeah, get Steve Hansen into the IRB, sort that calendar stuff out. It would be great for the sport if they did that. And then at least they would say, okay, Super Rugby, well, we've only got 12 weeks. Right. We'll put 10 teams, we'll play each other once, and we'll have a bye. Or, or whatever. Yep. It's done and dusted in 12 weeks. Every team plays, every player plays. They know that that's what it's set for.
Well, if you followed the NRL window and started at the beginning of March and finished at the end of September, you could have 2 complete rounds of home and away.
You could.
And then finish off with semi-finals and finals.
You could, but I don't think they'd ever do that because the focus will never be on clubs. It'll always be on international. So, but you could still got time to have a half decent club competition.
Yeah.
You do. You've got the time. But it needs a bit of hard work and a bit of thought.
Tell you what, mate, if only we were in charge.
If only we were in charge.
Just very quickly, massive game this weekend in Super Rugby. The unbeaten Chiefs play the third-placed Crusaders, and the Chiefs thumped Crusaders earlier on in the season.
It was the first game of the season, wasn't it?
Could very well have been, actually.
I think it was, yeah. That was a surprise for me.
Around. They got a few players back. The side is starting to look like a proper Crusaders side. And the Chiefs, got to be said, they've had a relatively injury-free run this year. So
Sam Cane will get injured this weekend. Is that what you're saying?
They're bound to fall over at some stage.
So you're picking, who are you picking in that one?
Crusaders, of course.
Of course you are. There you go.
Go the mighty red and blacks.
Oh, look at that. He's got his eye patch up.
Right, on to a bit of baseball before we finish off with anything else.
Shall we start local?
Yeah, but
I think we need to. Or do you want to take that to last? Do you want
a few crises going on in the sport in this country at the moment?
I couldn't believe it, mate. I was on Facebook was it earlier this week, wasn't it? Because of Anzac Day's got me all stuffed up. I think it was Sunday when the news came out, and all of a sudden on the Tuatara page, we're no longer an organisation. We're completely shutting down. Tuatara's completely gone, and I was like, that is unbelievable. I mean, obviously you've got your ear to the to actually what's going on a little bit more than I have. Obviously, I'm more of a sort of casual fan. You're really at the coalface. What the hell is going on with New Zealand baseball? Yeah, where you were. Maybe if you were still there, this wouldn't have happened. What the hell is going on? First of all, with the Tuatara. And why, obviously money is a big thing, and COVID didn't help, but give us a few more fine details. And then what's going on with New Zealand baseball?
Yeah, starting with the Tuatara, I'll be completely 100% honest. I fairly and squarely laid the blame on the board of Baseball New Zealand going back 5 years ago, when they basically completely dismantled the staff of Baseball New Zealand at the time, including Ryan Flynn, who was running the show at that stage. He was
literally doing everything.
Yeah. He was the one that got the Tuatara. It was his dream to get a team in the ABL. when I first started working for him, our dream always was to get that team going in the ABL and have Derek Jeter, the former New York Yankee, come out and throw out the first ceremonial pitch. Well, we didn't quite get Derek Jeter, but we got the Tuatara. The first season they battled away out in West Auckland in Te Atatu at McLeod Park. Built a temporary stadium there, which some of their visiting Australian players said was 10 times better than anything they played in Australia. Then they moved to North Harbour Stadium. Was a fantastic setup there, but really it was probably just a bit too big and a bit too expensive to be able to host an Australian Baseball League franchise. As I say, the Board of Baseball New Zealand, who was running the game at that particular time, they basically got rid of half of the staff for no real reason at all. Nobody will ever know why they decided to dismantle the staff. I guess they will only know. Maybe it will come out in years to come. Who knows? But anyway, it just meant that the Tuatara got off on the back foot right from the very start. And when Regan Wood took over from Ryan, did what he could, the best he could, to try and keep the program running. But in the end, COVID obviously didn't help with 2 years of the ABL being rubbed out. And then this last year when they came back, just the summer weather was actually, I shouldn't even say summer. Of the 5 series that were supposed to be played at North Harbour Stadium, one whole series was washed out, and one other series, only one game was played. So, you can't get through the doors and into the stadium when it's piddling down with rain, can you?
No, and you can't predict that sort of thing either.
And it's just Regan did say this week that it was hurt by the fact that the insurance payout hasn't come as quickly as they'd hoped, and creditors were banging at the door. So basically, they had to shut the doors so they can liquidate it and pay off the creditors. I don't put any blame on the existing or the staff and the management team that were running it. What I will say was 4 years ago or 5 years ago, when I came back from my Churchill Fellowship trip, working at Major League Baseball and the Arizona Diamondbacks, I produced a report for my fellowship, passed that report on to some staff members at the Tuatara, and nothing of it.
And they throw it in the bin. No, I wouldn't. Maybe not. Anyway,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So very sad for baseball. I mean, it's a pathway to professionalism. So
what do kids do now?
Well, it's basically back to funding themselves to get through the college program in the States, which is a very, very expensive track to follow, unless they can get a partial or full scholarship, which often little old New Zealand don't.
How are they going to get that if scouts can't see them play? It's just such a difficult situation, isn't it? I mean, unless they join another team in the Australian competition. And that was what I was a little bit disappointed about as well, is hearing that the Australian competition doesn't do anything for the Tuatara either. I mean, basically, I would have thought it would be in their best interest to have a team in New Zealand, just adds a little bit more flavour to their competition. But obviously,
absolutely.
I would have thought baseball is quite a wealthy sport worldwide. Is there no money trickling down to this part of the world?
Well, Major League Baseball used to fund 70% of the ABL in its heyday, when it was running smoothly and, there was lots of money in the game. But then they made a decision to pull out. And since then, the ABL has struggled for backing. Again, something else that needs investors, basically, and the money's just dried up over there. It's, they're up against the behemoth that is Australian cricket
and Australian rules
and Australian, all those other sports that play, mainly over the summer, obviously. But it's tough. I mean, there's 2 other franchises, Sydney and Canberra Cavalry, are both struggling big time. And
do we know why MLB pulled out? Do we know any reason why they stopped funding?
They believe the league was sustainable and could run on its own 2 feet. You didn't do the homework very well on that one.
I thought that, well, you look at the amount of Australians in the MLB these days, there's plenty of them. Obviously, it's a fairly good place to scout players from. I would have thought.
And the number of players that have played in the Australian Baseball League and gone on
That's what I mean.
Absolute superstars in the game. I mean, you can count Didi Gregorius has played in Australia, Ronald Acuna Jr., the Atlanta Braves' biggest star, Rhys Hoskins from the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, Liam Hendricks, the Chicago White Sox closer, is an absolute superstar in the game. And he's
an Aussie.
And he's an Aussie.
Yeah.
There have been plenty. Graham Lloyd is another Australian that, has won 2 World Series rings with the Yankees in the 90s. Some massive players have come out of Australia. So, yeah, I don't know why MLB finally made the decision.
You'd think the ALB would make an approach to them again, wouldn't you? And say, look, we've dropped, one team's dropped off, another 2 are struggling. Look at us. We need something here, or this is going to go belly up. Because it sounds like it may do. I mean, it sounds like there may not be an Australian league for much longer. Yeah,
I think they're probably relying a lot on the Asian teams. But yeah, even then, it's not really eventuating. I know they've got a Korean side in the league, but and plenty of Asian sides have indicated they would like to come down to this part of the world for their spring training, which is in sort of our summer, and use the facilities. And one of the things being talked about was, putting a New Zealand side in an Asian league, because they've got plenty of money and they would probably help out more than the ABL does. And you'd play half the season in Japan or Korea or China or wherever, and then the other half down here.
And then to make matters worse with all this Tuatara stuff, the chief executive of New Zealand Baseball comes out and does a great interview, basically speaking fluent marketing ease, wasn't she? She was had all the comments about going back to growing the game at the grassroots and all that sort of thing. And then we hear a couple of days later, doesn't sound like that's the case.
Yeah, well, there was a story. I'll read out a bit of my Facebook post that I wrote the other day. I've tried to stay away from speaking out about the Baseball New Zealand national body after working there for 7 years, but to see my sport dragged through the mud on fair go, no less, is absolutely astounding. Basically, what happened is there was a under-16 team in Christchurch. There was only one team in Christchurch, so there was no other teams that they could play against. They wanted to play in a national tournament, which was being held in Nelson.
Of course they did.
But Baseball New Zealand said, well, no, you didn't register your players when you were supposed to, so you can't enter. That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah, because we've got too many teams wanting to compete.
Yeah. The trouble was the under-16 tournament ended up being cancelled because they didn't have enough teams. So to turn around and say it would be unfair on those who registered on time is just shameful, given they had no local opposition to play against in Christchurch. On a radio interview over the weekend, the CEO said they're rebuilding the grassroots of the game. An interesting statement in itself, given the infrastructure and knowledge base built over a decade under different stewardship. I won't mention who those people were. To rebuild the grassroots of the game means bringing in teams such as this to national tournaments to help grow the game nationally and thus encourage growth in those regions that need help. If this team had been allowed to play, I'm 100% sure they would then have some local opposition next season with the carrot of possibly going to one of these tournaments in the future.
Yeah.
So for the CEO to sit there in her ivory tower with all those trophies behind her, just acting like the God Almighty, just looked absolutely terrible. And really, the fact that she's got no staff working for her, nobody gave her advice on how to present herself in that interview. It just looked terrible for the game. And there is more to the story, obviously.
Yep,
there always is. But it's just the look that it showed was just absolutely shameful.
And the fact that I also noticed that Steve Mintz, isn't it? He was the coach of the Tuatara. He actually said that he'd met her once He's been coaching there for, they've been the head coach of the Tuatara for the last 3 seasons. He's met her once, and she's never been out and even seen one inning of the Tuatara play. Now, I would have suggested, regardless of, if you're the CEO of a sport, you got to be out there and be seen occasionally in those sorts of. I mean, that's just part of your job, I would have thought. I mean,
as much as I've said about Mark Robinson as the Rugby New Zealand CEO, I'm pretty sure he's been to a lot of games.
Absolutely. Just get out there and press the flesh. I mean, especially in a smaller sport, especially in a minority sport, it's most important that you're out, you're everywhere, because you're having to wear every single hat, right? So it doesn't sound to me like she's keen on doing any of that. She's keen on obviously collecting the salary and saying she's a CEO or whatever her title is, but
looks good on the CV.
Doesn't sound like she's really keen on putting in, any real hard work, does it? It's incredibly sad for a sport like baseball, which has such an international following, and New Zealand was getting a really good grounding in this country, and then for it to all just be taken away like that, and then for officials to come out and say what they did this, and then just the mismanagement of that youth tournament. That's just, come on, come on,
give yourself an uppercut.
It's just ridiculous. It's almost, we didn't receive your facts, isn't it? It's a bit like that. It's come on, it's the kids, let them play. Who gives a shit, Yeah, it's just sad. It's just very, very sad. So I just hope that in the next little while that someone, that New Zealand baseball does get some investment from somewhere, and we can see the rising of the sport again, because it's a bloody great sport. So let's talk about what's going on the diamond, mate. What's going on in the MLB?
MLB, well, it's a month old now, the new season. I'm loving every minute of it. Watching games as quickly as they come. A few surprises so far.
Fast games too, mate. Fast games.
Fast games. The new rules are really having an effect, especially the pitch clock. Causing a few interesting incidents as well along the way. But as I say, a month old. Tampa Bay, Minnesota Twins, and the Texas Rangers are all leading the American League divisions.
Who would have thought that?
While Arizona and Pittsburgh are the surprise division leaders in the National League.
Oh, you'd be stoked to see Arizona up there, wouldn't you?
Oh, it's great seeing mighty Diamondbacks up there. But as you say, the pitch clock it's actually shaved about half an hour on average off games.
Crazy,
I didn't think it would have that much in effect, and I thought it was rubbish. But I must admit, it is good to see the games going through a little quicker. Although when I go to a ground when I'm next back in the States, I don't want the pitch clock. I want to be able to sit there for 3.5 hours, just soak it all in and take it in.
Yeah, this is Test cricket, not T20. Come on.
Quite right. The bigger bases have also had an effect on the fact that there's been more stolen bases this year. Players are keen to. I mean, we're only talking inches here. 1 or 2 inches. 5 or 6 centimeters difference, but it just, again, it's the old subconscious saying, it's actually less distance to that base.
Yeah.
I thought it would have ended the bang bang plays, where the ball hits the first baseman's glove and the hitter's foot hits the base.
Oh yeah.
Still plenty of bang bang plays.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. And the other rule change that they brought in was no more shifts. So you can't stack all your infielders on one side of the field. If you've got a left-hander hitting, you can't stack the first base side with all your infielders. But teams are still getting around that as well. They've still got 3 outfielders on the grass.
Yeah.
But centre fielder, can often
right on the line,
right across to right field, and the left fielder can move across. There's no restriction on where the outfielders have to go. So, it's just affecting the infielders. But again, hitters like Anthony Rizzo and Joey Gallo, their averages are up this year. And that's got to be down to the fact
can't stack them on that side
there anymore. As for our teams, the Yankees started off well, but have been a bit indifferent in the last week or so. They're up against Texas today. And the Seattle Mariners, who I predict could go all the way to the World Series this year. because they've got such a great side. They haven't started so well. They've got a bit of work to do. They're below 500 at the moment and trailing the mighty Texas Rangers by
Crazy.
3.5 games, and it's Texas who the Yankees are up against over the next 3 days. So a couple of big seasons ahead for all those concerned. And for San Diego Padres fans, their team's got a lot of work to do. They are struggling at the moment with a 13-14 record, but they get Fernando Tatis back fairly shortly, who
I heard
all of last season with a
he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a player. Drugs.
Yeah.
I heard Matt Scherzer. Is it Matt Scherzer's been suspended?
Yes.
Now this is a rule that hasn't changed, which he might not have been aware of.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. They midway through last year, they banned pitchers from using sticky stuff, basically, to put on their fingers so they could control the baseball a bit more and give it a bit more curve and twirl and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And basically said you can only use rosin, which is a sort of powdery substance, which they keep in bags behind the pitching mound, and they also keep it in the dugout. Now, you get a bit of sweat and a bit of rosin on your fingers, and it's just as strong as any other sticky stuff around.
Sure.
But rosin is legal.
Okay.
What Scherzer was saying, that it was only rosin on his fingers.
Yeah.
And another ex-pitcher, David Cohn, on Monday night or Sunday Night Baseball the other day, some rosin on his fingers, and with a bit of sweat, he actually could hold the baseball with his 2 fingers with nothing underneath it.
Wow. Yeah.
So
it's sticky as.
It's sticky as. And then the other thing with Scherzer was what he did, he was told by the umpires to clean his fingers and his hands.
Sure.
So he got an alcohol-based solution approved by Major League Baseball.
Okay.
Washed his hands with it in front of a Major League Baseball official.
Yeah.
In the dugout. Trouble is, when you get a bit of alcohol on your fingers with the rosin, it's even more sticky.
So it doesn't sound to me like he did too much wrong.
He didn't. He did everything according to the law, and still got tossed out of the game and then suspended for 10 games.
10 games. That's a long.
Decided, well, effectively, it's only 2 games for him because he only starts every 5 days
of course.
as a pitcher.
Yeah, sure.
So it's probably only 2 starts.
Okay.
But the fact that he was using a legal substance, and he decided not to appeal it.
Yeah.
Basically because he'd be appealing to the same people that suspended him in the first place.
Sure.
With no new information.
So how are they? Is it really down to the umpire? Is it really down to the umpires on the day?
When they test your fingers and hands at the end of each inning, if your hands are too sticky, they're going to, and it happened with Domingo Germán for the Yankees last week.
Yeah.
But they let him away with it because they could see.
He plays for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's all. So yeah, they've sort of got themselves in a bit of a sticky situation.
See what you did there. Love it. No, that's interesting though. It interested me.
So not quite sure how they're going to get themselves out of that one.
Okay.
All right. That's pretty much it for baseball. Anything else to report?
Oh, we had the cricket, didn't we? We've been playing a T20 series over in Pakistan. And the big thing over there has been Mark Chapman being an absolute assassin in the middle order. Mark Chapman being an assassin. You get that, mate?
Yes, very good.
Yes,
very good.
Good one, mate. Yes, you have to be of a certain age. No, he absolutely surprised me. He was just banging them all around the place. Absolutely fantastic series for him. We ended up drawing that 2-2. If it wasn't for the hail, I think we would have got ahead 3-2. We played very good T20 cricket and happy with the way we're going, considering it was basically our third 11. Everyone playing in the IPL, of course.
Yep.
And I think overnight we played a 1 day or 2, which we lost to Pakistan, I understand.
We did lose by 5 wickets, despite one Daryl Mitchell putting together 113 off
Mate,
115 balls. So
how good's he
he's really
going?
young. Put on 86. He scored
Oh,
86.
good to see him get some runs.
Yeah, so good 100-run partnership for the second wicket between those two.
Yep. Pakistan have got a pretty very strong batting lineup, though, don't they?
Yep,
Very strong. So
the man 117, Imam ul Haq 60,
yeah,
and Babar Azam 49.
And they did it with about 8 balls to spare, I understand. Who was in our team for the bowler? I think Tickner bowled, didn't he?
Yep, we had Milne, Adam Milne, Matt Henry, Blair Tickner, Ish Sodhi, Mitchell bowled 2 overs, and Ravindra bowled
And
7
who did the best in those? How did our quickies go?
Milne 2 for 60, so he was expensive.
Yeah.
Matt Henry only went for 45.
Yeah.
Sodhi for 51. Mitchell and Ravindra were expensive. Tickner went for 5.8. So
yeah, the standard for him. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm quite liking our cricket team though. When we've got everyone there, mate, we're looking bloody good. I was a bit pissed off that Kane Williamson got injured the first game in the IPL. Like,
terrible injury.
It's
He'll be
pretty
out
hard.
for the World Cup.
I mean, it's pretty hard though to say those guys they can't play in the IPL when there's 6 weeks. They can be a millionaire for 6 weeks' work, isn't it? And they, no, come and play our tour of Pakistan. Yeah. So we're looking okay. Yes. I quite like the look of our cricket team at the moment. We've got some good players in there.
Quite right. Anyway, on a sad note, it's not football and it's not sports, but rest in peace, Barry Humphries, aka Dame Edna Everage, and Sir Elias Patterson, the Cotswolds Hashade Australia.
Oh, he was awesome, wasn't he? Wasn't he an awesome dude?
He certainly was.
And then Harry Belafonte died the other day as well.
Yes.
He had a pretty good innings. I mean, he nearly raised the bat for 3 figures, didn't he?
He certainly did.
And someone else died today as well, but I think he was an old fella as well, so I didn't really take too much notice. So sorry about that. You'll have to go digging that one out yourself.
Oh, Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer, there you go. Jerry Springer. I was going to throw a chair at the screen just to relive his glory days, the old Jerry Springer show. So yeah. And so there you go. That's a first podcast in the books. We'll try not to leave so long between drinks next time, eh, mate?
Yep, perhaps we'll do one in the football off season when the transfer window is in full effect, and we can
let's do it.
Transfers till the cows come home.
I'd like to say hello to friends of the show, Kerry Jones, Martin Reed, and Clint Barclay. They've all been screaming out for another pod, so here it is, fellas.
Likewise, Murray Muffler McAuliffe, and of course, Chris Mitchell from the Liverpool Football Discussion Group. So I hope you all enjoy it. Give us a comment and
like and a share.
See you again in whenever.
Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.